Welcome to Groom Scroll. Bum bum bum. Like, you know what I mean? There should be like a little intro.
Mhm. That's
Is
gonna be it. I'm just gonna add some noise to it.
Groom Scroll, episode 2. Are we
Welcome
recording?
back. Yes, we are recording.
Did you not get enough of listening to Diana and Sarah complain about a movie you may or may not have ever seen? Well, buckle up. It's episode 2, baby. You get to hear it
And
again.
we're not complaining, Sarah, we're calling this shit out. There's nothing
It's true.
wrong with calling
I'm
shit
not
out.
complaining about complaining because I gotta tell you what, it feels good to bitch about some shit. This week is my pick, which is Election, which is a movie from 1999 that was produced by MTV or was like an MTV production, whatever, somehow like presented to the youth of America via MTV, which in 1999, was the king of the hill, man. Like that was about the pinnacle of coolness was MTV. So I think it was a movie that definitely got seen by a shitload of teenagers,
Mhm.
given the subject matter and the stars in it, having it come through from MTV. But I had seen this movie at least 2 times before. This was Diana's first time. So, Diana, tell me what your experience was watching Election.
I do remember MTV putting out quite a few movies back in the day. Like, do you remember that one about the boy band Together? Hey,
Oh my God.
together, you
Together,
and me
you
forever.
and me forever. Girl, I fucking love
You
Together.
plus
I
me
had the
equals us?
CD. Yes, the hardest part of breaking up is getting back your stuff. Dude, Diana, I love that we have known each other for how many years now, and we still learn something new. Baby girl, I fucking love Together. I loved it
Together
so much.
is such a good movie. Well, I haven't seen it in
Okay,
a long time, but it must hold up.
okay. Listen, the next time we hang out, we are fucking watching Together. I'm so fucking excited right now. Dude,
You know how much excited I am? A buttload. A buttload is $5 because you can fit $5 up your butt.
I fit $5 up there once. I could have fit way more. Oh my
I know I can
god.
fit way more up there. Way more.
Don't think I've been this excited about
Yeah.
something you and I have talked about in such a long time. Like, I am so happy. No one ever gets my Together references. Okay. And podcasting.
So I was a little surprised when you told me that this was an MTV movie and, that it's directed by Alexander Payne, who is, like, a
Mhm.
pretty well-known actor, and I didn't realize that he was attached to this. I also didn't realize that this is based on a book. My initial reaction, each character kinda has their own part where they narrate, and Matthew Broderick's character, who is another Mr. M, Mr. McAllister,
Mhm.
is talking about how much he loves teaching and how he's been named Teacher of the Year 3 times and how much he likes helping to shape young minds and whatever. I thought it was gonna be like there was an affair that was, like, more between him and Reese
Reese.
Witherspoon's character, Tracy. Like, I thought that that there was, like, something going on there, but he's just, like, obsessed with her for no reason. Like, she's just an ambitious, excited kid, and he was, like, getting under his skin, but he's also, like, attracted to her?
Yeah, it's confusing. And I will say, uh, after watching Miller's Girl, our last episode, this movie's like a walk in the park compared because that one is like so much more
Yes.
like intense. Not to say that this movie is not problematic. It is. This one stood out to me because this was a movie that I watched with my husband. I would say like maybe the same week or same month that I kind of had my aha moment. Around the time period that I really kind of came to terms fully with the idea that I had been groomed and sexually abused and that like it wasn't my fault and I was not a consenting participant in it. I had very recently watched this movie with my husband and because he had never seen it and we were like, we watched a ton of movies and it just came up in the algorithm. And he was like, oh, whatever. I like Matthew Broderick and like this looks funny. And he picked it. And I remember when he picked it, thinking like, I don't want to watch this. And I couldn't really remember why because I hadn't seen it since high school. And I just didn't want to watch it. But I didn't say anything because I don't know. We try not to veto each other's movie picks too much. Like we're kind of like, whatever.
Aw.
Um, And, the teacher affair part, like, the abuse part is pretty quick in the movie, like, it's the very beginning, like, it's talking about this other teacher who has sexually assaults Reese Witherspoon's, character, and it's, like, super explicit. It's, like, in the first 5 minutes, he's, like, talking about, like, how tight her pussy is and all this stuff, and it's like, "Oh my god," like, this is really intense.
Was not expecting that.
Yeah, and yeah, and, like, Matthew Broderick's character is, like, he's kind of like the voice of reason, right? Like, he's the one that's like, "Oh, this is messed up, and this is illegal, and, like, that you shouldn't be doing that, blah, blah, blah."
Right.
And I remember watching it with my husband and just getting super uncomfortable and tense in my body and just feeling really, like, panicky while watching it. So I think my memory of it is that the movie had more of that than it did. I think it was just, like, when I watched it, I was so on edge of kind of having that realization moment for myself that it really just, like, struck a chord. But then it does come up again kinda later in the movie because then Matthew Broderick's, like, having sex with his wife and then visualizes Reese Witherspoon's head on his wife's body, and she's like, "Fuck me," and, like, saying all this stuff, and he's, like, clearly into it. It is strange, like, it's a fucking weird movie.
He yes. The abusive relationship happens between this other teacher, Mr. Navalny or something like that, and who ends up getting fired and going back to wherever, Milwaukee, to move in with his parents. That relationship, it was depicted also as, like, this teacher giving her this flattery, telling her that she's so smart, and she even says that he made her feel, it was the first time somebody ever saw the real me, the me that nobody else knows. So, she associated that with, like, an actual, like, relationship, like, she thought that was but then she also gets, like, upset that he was, like, too mushy, he got all mushy about it because he caught feelings. So, I don't know, I was confused about, like, what she thought of that situation, like, did she understand? Like, did she think it was an affair? Did she think it was a relationship?
Mhm. Well, and I mean, I would say the biggest problematic aspect of this movie is the fact that it's all played for laughs, right?
Yeah.
Like Miller's Girl, it was erotic. It's an erotic thriller. And this one's like, ha 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 ha. Isn't it funny when people sexually assault their students? Tee hee. Because the part
Mm.
when she says, for the first time, saw me for the real me is at the same point when he's like shoving her head down in the car so no one can see her as they're driving into his
Ah,
driveway. Like, they're doing it's all very, like, it's a joke, it's funny, it's humorous when this happens,
I
which
didn't catch that.
is very, like, problematic also, right? Because it's just the message is like, "This is okay, this is funny." Because then it's like, the teacher that assaults her, he's bawling in the principal's office, and it's like, "Oh, look at this stupid blubbering idiot," and, like, he loses everything. He has to move with his parents. He gets like a crappy job and he's just this big mess. And again, here's the teenage girl and she's fine and she's in control. And she's like, like looks down on him and like this pitiful little thing because he is pitiful. But again, she is very much presented in this position of like almost power as well because there's a part where she threatens Matthew Broderick in a scene like, where they kinda go bebopping back and forth, and then he kinda threatens her saying, "Well, you're lucky everyone in the school didn't find out about your, quote, unquote, 'relationship' with the other teacher," and she's like, "Well, I can take you down because I know you're this, this, and this." Like, so again, that power dynamic I think is very
Mm.
interesting the way that it's depicted in the movie of the victim really being portrayed as, like, super educated, super smart, super in control of their shit, and, like, kinda dominating these small, pitiful, helpless men is still
Yeah,
there,
you
like,
know,
that weird seed is still there.
now that we've had 2 movies that are it's kind of the similar thing, it's clicking with me now what you were trying to say of in Miller's Girl. And it's interesting that Reese Witherspoon's character is also portrayed as, like, this ambitious, academically
Mhm,
talented student. That it is a problem to characterize a victim in this situation as someone who is in control, and I just wanted to
mhm.
share with you that I understand the point you were trying to make now. It is fucked up that,
Yeah.
she is quote unquote okay afterwards, like at the end she talks
Mhm.
about how she sometimes she thinks about Dave, whatever the teacher who got fired
Mhm.
was, and how he's doing or whatever. And then you do see her at the end and she's still doing her thing. She has some kind of internship or job or something in New York. I found myself wondering, like, okay, would a person like her, like with her kind of personality, how would that person, when they're in their 30s, see the situation? It's hard to say. It's a fictionalized
Mm.
character, but with the fact that she is so like high achieving, I don't make any mistakes, I'm perfect.
Mhm.
Would she ever be able to look back at that and be like, oh, yeah, he wasn't in love with me. He abused his position of power and sexually abused me.
She seems like a person that would not ever get to that point of being able to let down that self-preservation wall, right? Where you keep drinking the Kool-Aid because it's easier to tell yourself you, like, had an affair with somebody than it is to acknowledge that you were groomed and abused. So I don't know. I think she might be a person that would kind of just be a lifer of, like, keeping with the narrative solely on, like, a self-preservation level because I think that idea would really, go against her perception of who she is as a person. Like you said, like that perfection and that never messing up and really holding herself to a crazy high standard, and never being able to fail. Like, I think that would be something really crushing to a person like that. I also wanted to bring up, much like Miller's Girl, I feel like every female character in this movie was ridiculous. Like, you had the main Renee or not Renee Zellweger,
Reese Witherspoon.
Reese Witherspoon, Jesus, whose last name was Flick, which I also feel like was just a masturbation joke, like pick
Yeah.
flick. Like it felt very like flick the bean kind of a thing. I don't know. Again, this is 1999 from MTV. It's supposed to be a comedy and it's supposed to be crass and it's supposed to be, one of those movies that no one makes anymore about teenagers like doing it and stuff, which is strange to think about. Like those don't get made anymore. And they used to make a lot of those movies. Like
Well, because
80s up through,
who
like, it's just
yeah.
weird, like, they just stopped, which I'm not complaining about, but it is interesting thing, it's like a whole fucking genre that doesn't exist anymore.
Well, now there's Euphoria. It's all on HBO now.
I don't even know what that means, and I'm not gonna ask, but, like, so the main character, Flick, you know, she's this insufferable, smart, motivated girl. What a bitch.
How
That
dare
that's
she?
that's literally the only thing Matthew Broderick has against her. That's
And that's what I'm saying,
it,
like,
like,
why is he obsessed
that's
with
it.
her? Why is he like, I don't
Because
get it.
little Diana, because little men are scared of smart, powerful women. That's it. That's all. It's that simple. He wants to destroy her
Like,
because
she
she
didn't even
literally is
do
a
anything to him.
motivated. I know. So she's a ridiculous character. Then you've got the sister who is gay and falls in love with her friend. And then her friend's like, I'm just experimenting, which I thought was kind of similar to the friend in Miller's Girl, right? So it's like this like wacky lesbian friend character, right? Who like doesn't have her shit together and is like wild and like out of control. Like they're both kind of the same character. These movies are like 20 years apart.
That's
And then
wild, and we did
you've
not do this on purpose.
nope. And then you've got the girl, the friend of that lesbian character who she was dating, who breaks up with her and then starts dating the lesbian character's brother.
Lisa and Paul. Lisa's the
God, you're so
friend.
much better at this.
Paul.
I'm so bad at names. I'm so bad at names. I'm like, the girl with the face and then the guy with the other face. Uh, and she like goes and gives the guy a blowjob and then she like leaves him for somebody else. So it's like, well, she's just a slut. Well, don't worry about her, right? Like she's just messing around with everybody. And his wife like just wants to get pregnant. And so every sex scene, she's just like, fill me up, fill me up. And it's like, oh, poor him. He can't enjoy sex because she's just using him as a sperm dispenser, just like a Miller's Girl, where it was like, oh, poor him. His wife is so demanding. Like, I saw these strange correlations between these two movies that,
Mhm.
like, we did not pick. I had never seen Miller's Girl, so I had no idea. Like, there was really strange thread between the two of them that I was surprised about, given how far apart in time, and the tone is totally different. But just the
Yeah.
depiction of women, I thought was also still like, oh, it's pretty shitty.
It's almost like There are so many of these out there, Sarah.
It's almost like there's some kind of systematic sexism in our culture. I don't know. I could be wrong about that one. Hard to say.
Um, there was also another similarity between Election and Miller's Girl is there's also this talk of, identifying the line and not crossing the line.
Mhm.
And it is this is why this I'm a little confused by this movie because in the beginning, Matthew Broderick's character is the one who is saying like this is an issue because he's a social studies teacher, I think, like social studies
Yeah.
economics teacher. He's telling the other teacher, uh, Dave, that what he did was, wrong ethically uh, and legally. So he's, like, very much the voice
Mhm.
of reason to begin with, and then I feel like things kinda turned also, by the way, another similarity is that the Dave character, the teacher, was a math teacher, but also had a novel that he wanted to write, which
Oh my
one
god,
of the
right? Like,
things
she's gonna read my
yeah.
book.
So then I feel like things started to turn when Matthew Broderick's character knew that Tracy, Reese Witherspoon's character, was gonna run for president and that he would maybe be alone with her. And so then, like, he
Mm.
tries to sabotage her campaign because he can't control himself. Like, I don't think that I did not see that she was, quote, unquote, "seducing" him. It was more
No,
like
not at all.
he knew that there was another situation between a teacher and her, but it feels like he was blaming her as like, "Oh, well, she was a
Yeah,
seductress,
because
and it's gonna happen to me, and now I have to fuck up her campaign so that we're not alone together. Meanwhile, I'm gonna obsess about her and think about her while I'm fucking my wife." What?
well, also, the very beginning of the movie, he says she had gotten herself in a little trouble with the other teacher. Like, that's, like,
Mm,
the opening thing is, like,
mm.
she got herself into trouble.
Oh,
But you're
fuck
right, like,
that.
literally, this is, like, he has a best friend who he finds out is fucking a student. His best friend loses his job, and he tells his best friend that this is a bad idea, that he shouldn't be doing this. And then, yeah, the guy gets fired, and he's told that he's gonna have to spend time with this student and immediately decides that the only course of action is to systematically destroy this girl's chance of being elected class president. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But also, do you know what though? It really did make me think about our abuser though, because how many former students did we talk to that talked about how he fucking derailed their education and what they wanted to do to go to college or where they wanted to go or what they wanted to study because they pissed him off. He did that. Like our abuser did that. Like he literally fucked up kids' grades and classes and bullied them out of courses and told them they weren't good enough for this, that, and the other, and like literally changed the trajectory of people's
Yeah.
lives because they were not playing his game. And so, like, the motivation was different in the movie, but that really made me think of him. Like, he just decided he didn't like people and would just go out of his way to fuck them over. And that's what Matthew Broderick character did in this is just like, I don't like this girl because I blame
Mhm.
her for my adult coworker friend fucking her and losing his job. And she raises her hand too much and knows the answer to everything, which is just like, ugh,
How
how dare
dare
she be
she be
smart?
smart? What a Yeah, yeah, and, he thinks that it's her fault that his friend, quote, "lucky he didn't land himself in jail." He's mad at her for that, but he also seems like he is also attracted to her, like, if he is thinking about her when he's watching porn or fucking his
Mhm.
wife, and I don't know, maybe part of, like, his obsession and sabotage is him also being mad at himself for something that he told his friend was wrong.
And it's almost just like maybe he always felt that way and he was just saying those things to his friend because that's what you're supposed to say. Because the switch is it flips so fast. Like it's just like it goes from a scene of him being like, that's wrong, you shouldn't do it, to like jacking off to porn of like teenage themed porn, right? like set in a high
Yeah.
school. So it's like clearly he already owned that VHS tape. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is not a new thing for him. I find it very strange. It's kind of like, did he ever actually think it was wrong, or did he just say what he thought he was supposed to be saying in the moment? Yeah, I it's a weird movie, and it's definitely all played for jokes. And like listen, there are parts of the movie that are funny. You know what I mean? Like there are jokes in there that are funny that don't have to do with grooming and sexual assault. I think it's just the idea of depicting it as something that is humorous and, like you said, did not impact her at all negatively, apparently. Like she just moves on and is super like doop to do, whatever. That guy lost his job. Moving on to the next thing. Like she doesn't care. She's not like impacted. No harm, no foul. That's kind of the vibe. And like the teacher that assaulted her, it's like, oh, he's just a fool. He's not a bad guy. He's just a dummy. Again, well, he's just a guy that's made a bad decision. He's not a criminal. He's
Yeah.
just being silly. You know, like it's just that
To jail would be
lighthearted.
too extreme a consequence.
Yeah, he should just lose his job and have to live with his parents. Yeah.
The one of the other female characters, Lisa, who is the wife of Dave, the teacher
Mhm.
who got fired, she I took it as, like, it was a mutual kind of, like, lapse of judgment of they both kinda kissed each
Mhm.
other, and then she confessed to her friend,
Yeah.
Diane, I think her name is, and after that happened, like, he was so mad and blamed her and said to her,
Mhm.
"You ruined my life. You ruined Diane's life. I trusted you. You were the one that fucked up," which I think is kinda similar to Miller's Girl, where it's the person who is abusing their position of power because even though Matthew Broderick's character, at least from what we see in the movie, like, did not sexually harass or assault Reese Witherspoon's character, he did try to fuck up her campaign, and that is an abuse of
Yeah.
power, like, that's still a
Which he
problem.
does which he does get fired for, you know? So, like, there is some ramification for him there. But, yeah, I mean, it's the classic, man not taking responsibility for his actions, and I mean, I will say, I think within the movie, like, I will say that I think they depict Matthew Broderick, whatever, that fucking guy whose name I apparently can no longer say, and the other teacher, they depict them as idiots. Like, they do not try to make these guys look like good guys or cool guys. You're not supposed to like these guys. They're bumbling idiots, you know what I mean? Because eventually he gets stung in the eye by a bee and his face looks all fucked up and like, things just keep going wrong. And, you know, like he's supposed to be a bumbling idiot. So it's not like they're trying to romanticize this guy. But again, if you're not really like looking into the deeper messaging of it, it's still super troubling because even at the end of the movie when he like sees her again, you know, a year later, you know, and he's just still so angry at her and he blames her for everything. Like if that hadn't election hadn't happened, like none of this would have happened to me. Like
Mm,
somehow this teenage girl running for class president made him fuck someone else's wife, made him rig an election, a high school election and lose his job, and somehow also made him fantasize about having sex with a student for some reason, even though he hates her, right? But then at the very end, it shows him in another classroom setting, and there's another little girl with her hand up at the very end, and he's like, "Anyone else?" And so it's like, it's not
yeah.
even about Reese Witherspoon. It's like he cannot stand there being like a smart, powerful woman in the room. Like he's just such a troubling character. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
but he's also the main character, so he's kind of like an anti-hero, and I think you're kind of supposed to like him, but he's just this piece of shit.
Truly. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is wrong with you? It's like that it bothers him so much that there is the only person raising their hand is a little girl. A little girl with
Yeah.
blonde hair, by the way, who looks like a Reese Witherspoon's character, like Tracy.
You know, I will say, as I just went off earlier about how the women in this movie are depicted very strangely, I will say no one's really depicted well in this movie because I was just thinking like the two teachers are not depicted well. And then the boy, the teenage boy who runs against Flick in the school election is an idiot. Like he's like
But
super stupid.
he's so sweet.
He's
He's
so
so sweet. He
sweet
loves
though.
his
He is just
sister.
but he's so dumb.
He
Like he's
didn't
so
vote for
sweet, but he's
himself.
so dumb. It's like nobody really except for maybe the two wives. Like they're really not that problematic. Like the two wives are just kind of existing. One
Yeah.
makes a bad
Yeah.
choice, but she owns it right away, you know, like everyone else is pretty much like a pretty crap character.
The Larry kid who looks so familiar, and I can't figure out who he is, but in the movie, his
Larry.
name's Larry, and he's the one of the, election judges who counts the votes, and then is the one that ultimately, I'm guessing, finds the 2 missing votes, and then he pulls up next to the car, next to Matthew
Oh,
Broderick's car
yeah.
and spits on his window. He was
Yeah.
okay. He was alright. He
That's
had
true.
integrity.
He had a strong moral core. This is true. Those are very, like, sub characters, but this is true. Yeah, it was funny, like I said, like, rewatching it, I was super like, "Oh my god, this is, like, nothing compared to Miller's Girl." I just think everything's gonna be such a fucking cakewalk after that. It's just gonna be like, "Woo!" I mean, it wasn't great, but shit, there was no fog
We
machines.
and gorgeous satin white gowns.
No, and I will say, yeah, like, the teenagers looked like teenagers in this movie. Like, felt very realistic. Like, the school was clearly a real school. The teachers' outfits were, like, dorky teacher outfits. It felt very reality based in that way. It just obviously was, like, not trying to take anything seriously, which, that's not the intention of the movie. Like, it's supposed to be a comedy. I think it's just the bigger issue of using grooming and sexual assault as a punchline is clearly, does not hold up to the test of time
Yes.
26 years later, you know?
So, would you say that that was one thing that the movie did do well is, it seemed a little bit more realistic?
I would say yes. Honestly, even though it was played for jokes, even the part where she's in the teacher's car and he pushes her head down so that people can't see her. I did that. Like, that happened to me driving around with the teacher. I remember, like, sliding down in the seat so that people couldn't see me when we were driving through different parts of town. And even showing his house, like, when he takes her to the house, it doesn't look sexy. It looks awkward, and it looks like a grown man luring a small little girl into a bedroom, because she is very small, and they dress
Yeah.
her very young. Like, she looks very like a little kid. It looks very ugh. Like, that's, and they don't show anything really, but they just show his hand, like, grabbing her and pulling her into that room. I don't know. I thought that part all seemed kind of realistic, and just the fact that he, like, falls apart and is bawling like a little bitch is probably pretty realistic, and, like, ends up moving in with his parents and working at a shitty job. I'm like, yeah,
That
that's
is
what
very
happens.
realistic. That is what happens.
That's that's what happens. Karma, bitch. Yeah. I think that's partially what makes the movie so cringy is that, like, it's pretty, I would say, pretty solid in reality. Like, I don't feel like there's anything too ethereal about that film. It's very, like, here's kind of the gross, plain, unsexy reality of doing these fucked up things. I don't know. What do you think?
I think, sadly, another, thing that it does well at, portraying is that nothing happens to these people. The
Mhm.
guy moved back to Milwaukee and lived with his parents and looks like maybe he was working at a hardware store. Matthew Broderick moved to New York and was still clearly allowed to work around kids. The last thing that he says, the last quote of this movie is, "That's what's great about America. You can
Mm.
always start over. You can also become president of the United States if you are a sexual criminal."
It's not funny, I shouldn't laugh, but it's true. I had the same thought at the end of the movie, because this is what happens. And I mean, for those of you out there that are not up to snuff on the reality of our systems and our laws, there's the thing called pass the trash, and it's a real fucking problem. And it's pretty much the systems, the medical world, schools, churches, gymnastics, right? Like, sports, like, fucking name it. There's a system within it, right? Where there are people who abuse children or abuse their position of power and sexually assault people. And instead of being held accountable and being put in jail or publicly shamed in some way, are just passed off. They're shipped off to the next church. They're shipped off to a different school. They're shipped off
They're
to a different
allowed to
state.
resign. They're not even fired. They
Yes.
are allowed to resign.
Because people do not want to have it sully the name of their brand or their school district or their church or whatever, because that's what they care about, is they care about saving face and saving money. And unfortunately, these abusers are then able to go to different places and just keep hurting people and abusing people for years and years and years. And it's a ginormous fucking problem. So, yeah, that part of the movie where he was like, "That's the great thing. You can always start over again." That part kind of pissed me off because I was super like, in our situation, we were able to hold our abuser accountable to a certain degree, but not to the level that we would have liked to, and not to the level that most people that we know agree he should have been held to.
He should be
Because
in
there's
jail.
just he should be in jail. 100% he should be in jail. So yeah, that part was definitely troubling. And I think that was kind of the point, right? It's just kind of like, oh, that's the great thing. You can always just start again. And even like his start again was shitty. Like he's living in this terrible little apartment. It's not like he went off to live some great life, but him and that other teacher like were never, and like to be clear, Matthew Broderick's character never does anything with a student. Like he doesn't try to touch anybody. He doesn't even flirt. Like there is nothing besides that one scene where he like fantasizes about her while having sex with his wife. And then I guess the scene where he's like masturbating to like high school themed porn. But like just to make it clear, like no part of the movie is depicting his character as someone who like ever actually attempts in any way to have any kind of inappropriate relationship with a student. But he does try to systematically destroy her. So
Yeah,
like
and,
that's
that
troubling.
is that is very troubling. People like that should not be working with kids,
No, no,
even in
exactly.
museums.
This is true. This is true. He's like, "That damn kid." Also, the part where they just show the, like, caveman dong, I was like, "Jesus, like, I'm just looking at caveman penis. What the fuck? Come on now."
4 seconds.
I know. It's just and then it's
A
like,
flaccid
cave
penis. Come
yeah, well,
on.
they can't show you erect penises because 'cause that'd be too much fun. Yeah, no, it's a weird movie. It's a strange choice, and I think I originally brought it up because I really love the show Only Murders in the Building, which has Martin Short in it, who is not in Miller's Girl, like you said in our last episode. But there is a scene where Matthew Broderick is playing himself in the show, and he's talking about how he's a method actor and all these past things he's been in and what he had to do to prepare for it. And he makes a joke in the show that when he was preparing for election, that he became a high school teacher and slept with students. And Martin Short just looks at him and it's just like,
Mm,
and then the scene moves on. It was such a strange joke to make because it's like again that show's from like now. Like that episode was 2 years ago or something. But clearly the joke was that Matthew Broderick that's a fucked up thing to do, right? Like that's
yeah.
gross. Like Martin Short's response was very much like, "What the fuck? That were what?" Like that was
Yeah,
kind
but
of his
then
response.
it's just accepted and everyone moves on.
But everyone just moves on because he's, it's not the point of the show. But you know what I mean? It's like a very sub thing. But his character doesn't have sex with students in the movie. What? Like, it's just so confusing, and then but you're still kind of making the joke. Like, like, the whole point of this movie is using sexual assault of a high school student as a joke, and then 20 years later, you're on this other show, and you make a joke about the movie where they're making a joke at it. So it's like you're still making the fucking joke. Like,
Yeah.
it's still funny to fuck teenagers. I don't know, like, maybe
Yeah.
I'm
I don't think you're overthinking it. And it is even more it's almost like Matthew Broderick in the show or Only Murders in the Building is saying like, "Well, I just hooked up with students to do it even though it wasn't really for my character." But yeah, I think that even though it is 2025, it is still a joke. Child sexual abuse is still I still see skits all the time like in SNL about child abuse and other things, other popular media, still something that people think is funny.
think people think it's funny if the victim is a teenager. Nobody thinks it's funny if it's a 12-year-old, you know? Nobody thinks it's funny if it's a 5-year-old. Like, that's not funny. No one's making jokes about that, you know?
Yeah,
But I feel like when it's a teenager, somehow because I think teenagers are very sexualized in our culture, that
definitely.
it somehow makes it different. Like, it somehow makes it okay, or it makes it sexy, or it makes it like, "Oh, well, they should have known better."
Mm,
And even within our laws, a lot of the statute of limitation laws cut off at 18, or the amount of time you have to come forward changes if you're 18 at the time of your abuse, even if it was a teacher or a doctor or a therapist. So there's still that, even on a legal level, that perception that you suddenly should have known better, right? Like you are mature enough, and it doesn't matter that this grown adult 12 years or more your senior was abusing their position of power. Like, well, You turned 18 last Tuesday, dummy, so you should have figured it out, you know? So there's a lot of complicated messaging around teenagers in general.
Yeah, I agree. I saw one of the categorizations for this movie was comedy, and then I forgot where, but somewhere else said it was the comedy/thriller, which I don't understand, but that, it
There's
also
nothing
shared
thrilling about this
there's none,
movie.
right? No, not at all. There it also said satirical or satire or something, and I
Mm,
think a lot of people try to get away with joking about stuff or being like making a commentary on stuff and then saying that
mhm.
it's satire, which is problematic because like this, I don't know, I wouldn't would you consider this like satire?
I agree with you. I think sometimes the term satire is used to excuse a lot of shit that's not funny and that's not okay. And I think certain things, no matter how you're trying to joke about it, aren't funny, you know? Yeah, I don't know. I definitely kind of read that too, where some people are like, well, it's satire, and if you're taking it seriously, blah, 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 you're not getting it. But I also think that's an excuse people fucking make to justify shit. Same with Miller's Girl. I saw a bunch of like
Mm.
10-star reviews that were like, "Oh, if you don't understand this movie, there's something wrong with you, or you just don't understand art." And it's like, "No, dude, you're trying to
Uh,
justify liking creepy shit."
yeah,
Like,
that sounds like something the teacher would say.
oh, for sure. You're just not deep enough to
You
understand it. It
just
just
don't
goes
get
above your
it.
head. Okay. I forgot to mention the director of Election was accused of statutory rape by Rose McGowan.
Alexander Payne?
Yes, when she was 15 years old.
What? I didn't know I don't think I mean, I'm sure, like, I
Yeah,
read it when she was coming forward about everything, but I did not realize.
yeah, so she and I haven't read all of it, like, all the information about it, but just did a quick Google search, on, like, him, so the director and the writers, I just did a quick Google search on, and it popped up with him that she accused him of statutory rape when she was, I think, 15, and he was in his late 20s, and that he just, like, left her on the street, like, dropped her off somewhere in the middle of nowhere and, like, left her on a street or something, and he has claimed that it's totally false and that, it never
Of
happened,
course.
and she had put out a tweet afterwards, saying, I'm just trying to, like, I'm looking for accountability, I'm not trying to destroy anybody, and then kind of apologize. So I don't know, like it was kind of strange, but it was at the beginning of the whole Me Too movement. And I think took place at the time when, she kind of first started speaking out about different experiences in her life. But I thought I was like, damn, that's pretty weird. Like you've got this creepy movie about teachers fantasizing about teenagers, and then you get accused of statutory rape of a teenager.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then one of the
It
producers was also involved
checks
in a
out.
few other movies. Yeah, the other producer was involved in a few other movies that also kinda had a lot of large age difference relationships in them too. So I was like, "Hmm, interesting." So yeah, I forgot to mention that.
We're gonna get the schedule down eventually, listeners. Please bear with
Mhm.
us in these first few episodes. But if I'm remembering correctly, the next episode is going to be our sliding doors episode where we talk about
Yeah,
life in our 20s.
yeah. I'm glad you
So,
remember this shit, Diana, because I do not. I was like, Sliding Doors, the Gwyneth Paltrow movie? I never saw it.
you bitch, you were the one who said, "What if we call it our sliding doors episode?"
Listen, I say a lot of things. I don't know if you've noticed this. I talk a lot. I can't fucking be expected to remember everything that comes out of this chatterbox.
All right, well, that's why we make a great team.
Oh, Jesus, you retain a lot better than I do. Oh my god.
Well, yeah, so next week or next episode, a regular one, not a groom scroll, is gonna be about, because Sarah, you shared with us that you got out of that situation after your first year of college, and you're gonna tell us a little bit more about how being in that abusive relationship affected your life afterwards. And I am going to share, about how what life was like, because I did not leave the teacher until, I was 25. So I spent many years with him, unfortunately. But in the meantime, if you have thoughts or want to share your opinions about election, and do you have any suggestions for future Groom Scroll episodes? So you can send that in to our email, bloomingaftergrooming@gmail.com, or on Instagram at bloomingafterpod.
Yeah. And remember, If this is serving you, come on back and enjoy. If this is not, and it's triggering you and upsetting you and making you not be able to go to sleep or freak the fuck out, please stop listening. Like, we don't, we just want
Mm.
to check in with our listeners and make sure that you're taking care of yourselves. Diana and I clearly have a trauma response of laughing and making jokes about things, and that is not how everyone else processes. So we don't ever want anyone to think that we are making light of what we're talking about, and that this is, necessarily the most healthy way to process. It's just the way that we process. So we just want to put that out there and remind everybody to take care of themselves.
Yes. Thank you so much for saying that. Well, thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Oh, fuck. For those of you that don't know, Together was a spoof TV show about boy bands, but it was fucking hilarious. And Chris Farley's brother played the like old guy in the band, and it was like they had the dumb one and the young one. Oh, and then poor Michael actually died of heart disease.
Yeah.
He was super young. Oh my
Q
god.
QT.
Anyways,
Yeah.
oh my god. I'm so happy right now.